Hello, welcome back to another New Music Monday. I'm Jason, the song leader and music coordinator here at Temple Road of Shalom, and I'm here with a fabulous guest today. If you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. My name is Yoni Battat, and I'm here to tell you about a new project we have coming up called Kedmah. It's a new project of the Rising Song Institute, and it's a project of Middle Eastern and Mizrachi melodies.
Yeah, super excited to have you. Super excited about the music that I've been able to listen to so far from the project. Let's start just at the very beginning. Tell us a little bit about who you are as a person, as a musician.
Yeah. Um, the short version is I started playing violin when I was four, and music has been since then a very important part of my personal identity and also just spiritual practice and connection to holiness and God and ancestry and the Jewish people. Despite having Iraqi Jewish roots, my dad's parents were both born in Baghdad. I didn't have much access to that culture growing up. I I wanted to play Jewish music when I was a kid, and so my parents sent me to the local klezmer band, and that's what I was able to do, and I loved that, and it was an important part of my professional life as well, and continues to be. But it really took a concerted effort to start getting into the music of my Iraqi ancestry, and to start learning the musical language, Arabic language, some of this repertoire.
How did you make that leap? How did you start to get into your Mizrahi musical heritage? And what is, in your words, like some of the big differences between, you said klezmer, those Eastern European Jewish music influences and the Mizrahi music that you evolved into and that this album revolves around?
Yeah, it started when I was 16 on a trip to Israel. My grandfather took me to a Middle Eastern music school in a town called Or Yehuda. It's a town that's historically been populated by a lot of uh, it was started out as a development town that was housing Mizrahi immigrants from different parts of the Middle East, and continues to have a lot of Mizrahi folks living there. And there's a music school that teaches Arab music and Middle Eastern Jewish music. And he took me there, and I had my first lesson, and I learned about this was at age 16. I learned that everything I thought I knew about music, especially as a classically trained violinist, was turned on its head. And so much of the aesthetic, so much of the way it's organized, all of a sudden, so many possibilities were opened up. Most obviously is that there's notes in Arab music as part of this maqam tradition. It's the musical mode system of Arab music is called maqam. And as part of that tradition, we have notes that don't exist in Western music. There's notes that lie between the scale of like the two closest notes that you could have on the piano, for example, a white key and a black key, and we have another key in between those. And that those quarter tones, those microtonal inflections add so much character and expression to the music. And as a 16-year-old musician, I was totally excited and inspired in a sort of nerdy way, just that this is possible. And then kind of became obsessed over the following years about trying to make it my own, even though I didn't grow up with it and it wasn't natural to me to try and listen as much as I can, learn as much as I can, play as much as I can, soak in as much repertoire as I can, and to start making that tradition also my own as well. It's a journey. It's been a long journey and ongoing. I still have a long ways to go, but it's been really, really exciting to be able to start feeling enough of a handle on it that I can transition to also sharing it with people in my community.
And now flash forward to nowish. Tell us what is the Rising Song Institute's PUD project? What is Kedmah? How did this come to be, this partnership and this musical expression?
Yeah, it started when Rabbi Yosef Goldman and I met. It was just before COVID in 2020. I think it was February of 2020, and we met for the first time in Philadelphia and realized all these shared interests and shared experiences. Yosef also is from a mixed family, half Mizrachi, half Ashkenazi, just like me. His side is from Syria and Yemen, the Mizrachi side. And we both were doing this work of trying to learn maqam, of trying to reclaim this musical part of our ancestry. Yosef is a rabbi and an amazing composer, song leader, who has worked with Joey Weisenberg in the Rising Song Institute for many, many years, since almost the beginning. And when we met, we started a kind of casual chavruta together, learning maqam and the Jewish repertoire of the Middle East with a teacher on Zoom over in Jerusalem, and then having that be every other week, and the week in between we would get together on Zoom and practice together. And that morphed into this project. I think there's a need for this type of music to be represented, and I think for Rising Song Institute, they've taken more interest recently in recording and transmitting traditional melodies and not just original music. And so this fits really well into that initiative. And yeah, it just kind of went from there over the course of at least 2 or 3 years. Yosef and I were working together and slowly developing this project. And finally brought Joey into it and brought other amazing, amazing collaborators into it, which culminated in the recording this past November and subsequent release.
You mentioned how Rising Song has been interested in traditional melodies of late. Are the melodies on this record, are they like based in traditional melodies, or are they your interpretations of traditional melodies? Like, is there originality to them, or are they more in that vein of traditional melodies that already existed?
Totally, yeah. The melodies are all traditional themselves. And when I say traditional, that means sometimes we don't know who the composer is, but sometimes we do actually. And so traditional is kind of this broad category of Jewish music that's older and from the Middle East. So some of them we know who the composer is, but many of them we don't. They're folk songs or folk melodies that come from places like Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Morocco, Jerusalem, and Turkey. And the texts also themselves, the piyutim, the poetry, the liturgical poems that we're singing to these melodies are also in many cases quite old. Some are as recent as the 20th century, but some can go back as early as the 16th century and even before in some cases. So it's really this combination of old material with also old music, and then our own take on it, which is, that Yosef and I grew up in the West and grew up in America and grew up with a lot of diverse musical interests. And our task for this album was holding those modern sensibilities alongside a desire to really be true to the authenticity of the music and to present it in its full complexity and its full beauty with quarter tones and that beautiful expression of the microtonal maqam music, not just the notes, but also the expression, the ornaments, the slides, to really bring that aesthetic to the music while also having a bit of a modern sensibility that can translate a little bit more towards our American audiences. So we did that by bringing in the electric bass. Joey Weisenberg plays a fretless electric bass. And that's kind of like the more Western element, although he's playing on a fretless bass, so he can also play those microtones. And then we have the traditional elements. I play the oud in the recording, oud, and also violin and viola, which have become traditional instruments in the last 150 years in this music. And then traditional percussion instruments. That's also a little bit of a bridging percussion element. April Centrone, the percussionist, plays both traditional instruments like rik and frame drum, darbuka, and also plays a little bit of kit here and there, just to give us, again, that bridging. And I'm careful not to call it fusion, because it's not fusion. It's really being true to the essence of this music, while bridging and serving it and making it a little bit more accessible to the folks in our community.
Yeah, well, that's something I was wondering about. Particularly, you mentioned, both of you have these mixed Mizrachi and Ashkenazi backgrounds as people, as musicians, and Is there how else, if differently, how else would you describe where that personal experience on those two different traditions finds its meeting in this music?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that the musical traditions of like our Ashkenazi ancestry are really represented in this project, and you know, I can speak for myself that I spent many years as a klezmer musician. I recorded with my own klezmer band called Two Shekel Swing. That was kind of my main thing for many years, but I had to take a deliberate step away from that in order to be able to give this music the attention it needs and deserves. Um, and so I can't say that there's much Ashkenazi sensibility or aesthetic in this music at all. Um, I will say that just balancing those things is a personal journey for me, and I'm sure for Yosef too. My first album, Fragments, was kind of about this experience, about feeling our fragmented identities and feeling the ways that the different disparate parts of ourselves don't always fit together in every space that we're in, and trying to find the right space for all that, and also trying to find ways to connect with parts of our ancestry that are harder to access. And for me, the Mizrachi Iraqi part is definitely harder to access sometimes because of the language, because of the music, because of the imperfect transmission of memory, because of assimilation, because of migration. You know, these things, these fragmenting forces are true for so many people in their story, especially Jews in America. But for Mizrachi Jews, it's a particular flavor of that. So as part of this process and learning this music, it's a real moment of connecting with ancestry, and it's a moment of um, finding healing, finding gentleness, finding wholeness amongst those fragmented pieces of ourselves that didn't always feel like they had a place.
The music itself, you sort of alluded to this. A lot of the tracks on this album, the words may be familiar to folks because there's an Adon Olam, there's Yari Bone. These are melodies that are these are texts that may be familiar to folks. But could you do a quick explain, like what is a piyut and how did you pick out these specific sets of texts? What about them are the reasons why these are the ones that lined up for the album?
Totally, yeah. So Piyut is a liturgical poem. It's a devotional poem to God. You know, so much of poetry over the years is spiritual, and in many different traditions, we think about Sufi poetry. Um, there's many different traditions of devotional poetry towards a higher presence or God, but also a lot of poetry is secular. A lot of poetry over the years has been about a loved one or about heartbreak. So this is poetry that's specifically spiritual Jewish poetry about God, been written for hundreds of years. And what's special about it is that it's intertextual within the Jewish tradition. The poetry alludes to different places in the Psalms, in Torah, in all parts of Tanakh. And if you're paying attention, and I'm not so great at this, but I rely very heavily on Rabbi Yosef Goldman for this noticing. But if you're paying attention, you can see these references, and it's a beautiful network of texts that reference each other, and this poetry does that in a really really beautiful way, and some of it is really ornate and really really special poetry written in ancient Hebrew, and some of those melodies, like you said, Adon Olam, for example, is one that's sung by most of our communities around here. The version that we recorded actually is a slightly different text, which is interesting in and of itself. That piece, the version in the Sephardi Siddur, for hundreds of years has been a different version than the one that Ashkenazim have used, and it has, I think, 5 additional lines in it from the one we're used to, which are really beautiful. And so that's like a little bit of a twist. It's like you think you know the words, but then you get a little bit of a twist of something new. So I'd encourage listeners to look out for that. As far as how we chose the melodies, this was, something Yosef and I considered for a long time. Our overarching goal was a thematic goal with the text, was to find texts that have a connection to the inner spiritual life and the soul, and to think about finding texts that connect us with our own human experience. And more broadly, we wanted to create a collection that reflects the diversity of, I mean, it could never reflect the full diversity, but reflects some diversity of Jewish expression within the Middle East and North Africa, pieces from, as I said, not everywhere, but Turkey, Syria, Jerusalem, Iraq, Yemen, and Morocco. And within that, also to explore the maqam tradition as well, this modal tradition, and to explore different sound areas, to explore different tonalities within that. So, with a general adherence to trying to find this connection to the inner soul, we also wanted to find variety of music and of modes. I'll also say one more thing about the theme. The name of the album is Simu Lev, which means in modern Hebrew it means pay attention, but literally it means Simu, put, Lev, your heart, like put your heart, pay heed, pay attention. Pay attention to your heart. And it comes, and we drew this name from one of the piyutim, which is called Odela El. And the full pasuk, the full line, says Simu Lev al haneshama, pay attention to your soul. So by calling in Simu Lev, our intention is to draw people's attention to their own human experience, to their own spirituality, to their own inner consciousness, their own inner lives. And our hope is that through these sounds, people can connect more deeply with holiness in their lives and with their own humanness.
I certainly hope that folks will give all of Simu Lev a listen and be able to, pay attention, see where it takes their souls. I actually also just found out this morning, I hear that you're coming down to our area to do a little show at the Kennedy Center.
Yeah,
And
very
I,
excited about that with Yosef Goldman, and also we'll be performing with Frank London and the Klezmer Bass All Stars. An amazing, amazing lineup of stellar musicians just to celebrate American Jewish Heritage Month.
yeah, absolutely. Listen up, pay attention, go check out Simu Lev wherever you listen to music, and come see Yoni live and in person and at the Kennedy Center on, I believe it's April 15th.
May 15th. May
May
15th.
15th.
Yeah.
May 15th. And thanks so much for hanging out today.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks so much.